Get your water.
Yeah, chew on a cough drop here. I'll let you do the vast majority of the speaking on this because I should let you talk more. I get very subconscious about it.
It's cool. Welcome to the podcast. Been practicing that. Welcome to the Poor Sports Podcast. Today we talked about many things. We went off the rails for a while. We talked about Kanye West for some reason. We talked about Spokane and the Gonzaga Bulldogs, the Zags. Go Zags.
Oh, fuck the
Even
Zags.
though we don't like the Zags.
I gotta stop swearing in the intro. Even when I'm not talking, I'm swearing in the intro.
I don't think you swore the entire podcast and you wait until the intro.
I definitely swore in the podcast.
To destroy the algorithm.
I don't want to have our loyal listeners think that I didn't swear in the podcast.
He was very clean this episode. There was no drinking and no swearing.
I know.
No clothes also. Jason Segel penis was searched.
Yes.
You can figure out what that's all about.
And it's been on the screen the whole time.
It's just been sitting up there staring at us. We talked about Lamar Jackson a little bit and just the NFL stigma around potential for collusion.
Yeah.
And of course, we finished with the home run game, which it was a barn burner this week.
It was a big one. It was some season-altering scores got put up.
You have to stay tuned for that because it was that exciting.
Yeah, follow me at the Casey McLean, stand-up comedy dates all over the place. Sorry for my voice. June 25th, Tacoma Comedy Club. That's the big one. Last headlining show I'll do before we have our second child. And we'll see if the podcast survives.
I might just keep showing up at your house once.
Yeah, that's good. I
podcast
might need
or
it.
not. Yeah, I'll just be here.
We won't even put the mics out. I'll just talk to someone who's over the age of 5.
And you can find me at AlexSSN.
All right. Oh boy, it is the Poor Sports Podcast. We're back. I almost said the name of my other podcast.
How do you keep track of them?
It's hard, and the ones that I've done and that have failed, it's just an innumerable amount of podcasts.
Yeah, you're like a job hopper. You know, people that switch careers every year, except it's podcasts for you.
Right, exactly. And similarly, people look down on you for doing that.
Really?
People are not thrilled that I keep making podcasts. Like the public isn't constantly crying out for more. Also, by the way, obviously my voice is still fucked up. This is actually feels better, maybe sounds worse. I've had a weird experience with this lost voice.
It sounds about the same, I would say, as it did last week to me.
Okay.
But you're also on week 2 of having
a
shot voice, which is not good.
I've had these like weird stretches where it sounds perfect.
Yeah.
And then today there was 15 minutes where it sounded perfect. And so last week I felt like I sounded like Trump and this week I feel like Pam Adlon. If you're not familiar, she was
on Californication.
Sure, there we go. That was not the reference I would have made, but I have a little Pam Adlon thing going on, huh?
Yeah.
She was, I believe she does the voice for Bobby Hill also.
Yeah, she's definitely like a talented voice actress, but Californication is the only thing I've ever seen her in.
She was Louis' wife in Lucky Louie on HBO, and then was his love interest in Louie on FX.
Interesting.
Louis C.K.
Yeah.
Not Louis Anderson.
Did you ever watch Californication?
I never did. That's David Duchovny?
It's a pretty good show. Is
it? Should we watch the whole series right now?
Let's just watch it.
We don't have a lot on the list today, so we really fill some time by watching.
I think you would like it because he's a writer, so he's like he like dabbles in all sorts. He's like a Rolling Stone magazine type writer.
I feel like this might be one of those things though, like people do, where they're like, "Well, God, see, I really am. It's like cracking. It's like it wants to crack, but it can't quite crack. So I become Pam Adlon.
It's gonna ruin your falsetto.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's where people are like, "You like IPAs," and then they buy you like a 8x10 foot poster that's IPA, and you're like, this is a lot to look at.
Yeah.
Because I liked IPAs. He's a writer. You might like it. This shows it's a comedy, right?
It's a comedy. Gratuitous nudity.
Oh, I'm in.
And it's from the early 2000s, so the nudity is heavily on the women's side.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Dude, I watched are you a Jackass fan?
I've watched Jackass, but I'm not
crazy.
I'm not like a huge Jackass.
God, you're such like a fucking, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain, because you like top 40 music, you like sitcoms and reality TV.
Yeah.
But Jackass is like a bridge too far.
It's not that I dislike it. That Bad Grandpa movie, I really enjoyed that. And I used to watch like episodes of Jackass.
Do you need a plot? Is that why you like Bad Grandpa better, you think?
I think so. I'm not like shows like Impractical Jokers. Like they just don't really do it for me. Punk'd, I think, was one of the ones that first started that whole kind of genre. But like those types of shows, I need like a storyline to follow.
Well, I think if we're all being honest, I think Candid Camera did it before any of them. But so Jackass Forever, did you see it? The one that came out in the pandemic?
I did not.
Okay, there's I believe they said it's got the most dicks in it of any of the Jackass movies. Not to sell you too hard on this.
Now I'm gonna go out and watch it.
Yeah, but Jackass 4.5, because this is like, if you haven't watched Jackass, you might not even realize they put out a 0.5 version that's like it's like 1/4 documentary and then 3/4 like lost footage that they weren't able to include it. And I can't even count how many times I saw a penis on 4.5. There's so many.
It's what the people want, man.
We've gone full circle on televised nudity.
They want the dicks.
They want the dicks.
Did you see Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
I did see Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
I feel like most people have. That I'll never forget being in the theater, seeing that movie, and it's like the first 5 minutes, Jason Segel drops his towel and exposes his penis, and I'll never forget because like you didn't see it, no one saw it coming, and like it was just all these audible gasps.
I just typed in Jason Segel penis,
and not
is
an
it his
incognito
real penis?
Mode. Yeah, I believe it's his real penis. Yeah,
it's the funniest possible thing to do is to show your dick for comedy.
Yeah, he did it, man. He just went for it, and it happened out of nowhere. And the other unforgettable one, and I don't know if it is his real penis. If it is, that's unfortunate. But Ken Jeong in The Hangover.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I feel like they should have done something for the stereotypes that exist, given the man a prosthetic or something like this. Like let's fucking.
I agree. It would have been a better character arc that no one saw coming.
Yeah, I think we could have stopped Asian hate right there. To be honest with you, if we would have just built Ken Jeong up a little bit,
a strong medium.
Yeah. I think. I mean, let's not put him too far above average. But
no, we don't want to do that.
The other, maybe like a little bit of Brittany Murphy, rest in peace. I think there's like a raspiness. It's like a little sexy, high pitched raspiness that I can't. I mean, I'm turning myself on.
You could do voiceover work right now. You'd have to stay in this mode.
Yeah, I got about 45 more minutes to do voiceover, and then it's going to either get worse or better, and I'm out of my sweet spot.
You kind of sound like a strip club announcer.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I might just be trying to get like deep enough to not hit that high pitched thing because it's like, yeah.
You sound like you're going to call someone on the main stage.
I am Jason Segel and Ken Jeong together, dueling penises. The other thing about, I never know. Do you remember a couple of years ago when Russell Wilson was on like the cover of I think Sports Illustrated and had the obvious cock imprint?
Yeah,
and then everybody had an opinion, and I'm like, I don't know. Like people are like, "Whoa, big dick," and other people are like, "That's a tiny dick," and I was like, I guess I don't know what a limp dick. It looked like a normal sized limp dick to me, and I felt like there was a lot of commentary on it.
People had opinions. Most women seem to like it. I don't know. I haven't spent a lot of time studying the dicks.
Yeah,
but
not in that state. I need them hard.
When I was at UW, the UW IMA, which is the gym for students, like alumni who are like the boosters and stuff can basically all go there if they like pay their way. And that locker room is just notorious. Like everybody hears about old guys in locker rooms walking around just parts out, not a care in the world. That might be the epitome of one of those places because you have this kind of weird juxtaposition of like all these college age dudes who are students, and then you have all these like real old guys who pay lots of money to the university for this right to be able to use this gym that are just dicks out everywhere, and you see a whole lot of dicks.
It is kind of fucked up that you get to see like peak dick and valley dick all in the same, you know what I mean? Like it's the dicks at their absolute prime and then dicks 60 years later. When was the last time, have you ever seen someone naked in public? Like I've been to like the Solstice Parade in Seattle. Yeah. That's a different thing. I mean like.
That's art.
Yeah, that's art.
You can get as naked as you want.
It's also like a community event where, like, I remember when I moved to Tacoma, I went to the post office, and there was just a woman naked a block away, and I'm standing outside, and there's like 3 dudes that are like, hey, naked lady. To me, I was like, oh, we're all in on this. This is awesome.
We're all watching. It's a spectator sport at that point if you see someone running down the street naked.
Yeah, and you look, and it's like not even, I would say, like an appealing.
No, it's not. It's never appealing.
This thing reset. Now I get why it did that. God damn it, this fucking thing. Well, I have a solution to edit. Is it good to comment on the failures of the technology while we're...
There's a lot of technology in here. You know, it's a surprising amount.
I did get to talk to a buddy of mine about how to set up a podcast, and I was like, you've come to the right man.
If you don't know how to set up a podcast, I don't know who anyone could...
I've made every mistake possible.
You could literally create a business of teaching people how to do podcasts and probably make decent money.
Make way more money than I have doing podcasts.
You could create your own little enterprise of being a podcast teacher.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean,
something to pursue in your free time.
Yes, I know. I have tons of it. And I'm about to have a lot more of it.
Especially
now. Why were we talking about dicks? Oh, so have you seen someone in public naked? Has that happened to you?
I'm sure I have.
It didn't make an indelible mark on your brain, though?
No, I mean, I've been to a nude beach before, so yeah, I've definitely seen
Were you naked on that beach?
No. We were on a cruise, and it was one of the islands that we went to, and literally there's like this thin rope, like just a thin like rope that divides nude beach from normal beach. And once you cross over that rope, people can be naked. But I mean, you can see, I mean, it's a beach, so you could be on the clothed side and still see these people walking around naked.
Isn't it? It's a little strange that that's like legal. You know what I mean? Isn't it a little?
It's a little weird. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you were worried about that sort of thing in the clothes section, you would just move as far away from that rope.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no prude, and I'm also not like, if you're worried about it, don't take your kids to that beach or a beach that's within iShop, but...
Most people at the nude beaches, though, they don't look like normal people. I mean, there's no easy way to say it. They have...
Well, that might actually be the problem. They might look too much like normal people.
Well, I mean, they're not Greek gods or goddesses. They are usually older, but it's like the brown tan, like baseball mitt skin that really sets them apart. Like, parts are sagging all over the place, but when you get that leathery...
You get like the freckles,
that leathery skin. You're like, God, how are you still alive? Like, you look like beef jerky.
Did you ever do a tanning bed? I never have. I'm not.
Oh, I have. Yes.
You did for what?
Well, I back in the day was a Planet Fitness member, and one of the perks that you get in your $10 monthly Planet Fitness membership, probably not a tanning bed you want to use.
Sure,
but I did use it.
Yeah.
I had to see. And I also, people who actually watch the video feed can tell that I'm pretty pale.
Yeah.
But in the summertime, I get really friggin' dark.
Interesting.
My skin tone varies quite a bit, and generally I look worse when I'm pale. So.
Okay, so this is you at your worst. We've gotten you this entire.
It's only going to get better from here, so you might as well stick it out. I'm like the weather. As we get close to the summer, I also get better.
You're gonna go from like Walmart Bert Kreischer to Walmart Brendan Schaub.
Yeah,
in one season of a podcast.
Yeah, we could do it. It's possible.
So yeah, this voice thing's bothering me. I told you off the podcast, but I was golfing all day, and I'm like on Friday, not all day.
And the weather wasn't great.
Weather wasn't great, but I was like struggling, and then I'm halfway through a beer, and I'm like. Like it's not like I'm throwing up. I'm like, fighting through this, and then I go, and then it's like I turn into fucking Morgan Freeman, and I'm like perfectly.
You got a nice baritone.
Yeah, and then I'm like back. It's just so frustrating. It reminds me a little bit of. Have you had your tonsils removed?
No, not that I know of. It's possible though.
Like because you've been to Mexico and woken up with.
I don't know what people do to me when I'm sleeping. I try not to ask questions.
I have a joke about this, but when I went in to get my tonsils removed, like the intake nurse before the surgery is like, have you decided how you're going to deal with this surgery emotionally? And I'm like, you stupid fucking lady. Like, what it's like, oh, I'm going to get my tonsils sticking out. I need to get a counselor. And then like day 4, I was like back to eating solid food. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm a man. And then you regress. There's like it's everybody, it happens to everybody, I guess. You get so much better really quickly, and then you regress. And around day 7 is like people commit suicide. It's fucked up.
Do you really feel that bad? Like, how do you feel?
It's like you haven't had solid. So you go from like days 1 through 3.
Yeah.
No solid food.
Yeah.
Day 4, you're like, it's the first, like I had a risotto, which is like not.
Yeah.
I'm not eating fucking steak or crackers or anything like that. But I was like, it feels substantive, you know? I feel like finally I feel full and then you like, I mean, literally I would have to, so I did this like 2 years ago. So it's also much worse in your 30s. Yeah. I would take like the maximum dose of liquid ibuprofen. I would wait till it kicked in. I would drink a like 30-ounce milkshake as quickly as I could because that's like all I could handle.
Yeah.
And it had to be like at the peak effectiveness of the ibuprofen.
Yeah.
It hurt to swallow water.
Yeah, that's not good.
It hurts to like, and it was like that kind of hurt where it's like it aches. Like it feels like it's weighing, the pain is weighing you down. And around day 7, people have like a big emotional crisis sometimes. And I was like,
wow.
Oh, my joke, in the joke, I never give this lady any credit, but the reality is like you're like struck. And I'm like, dude, I haven't done stand-up since fucking, not since last episode. Like I can't trust that if I go to a show, I don't want to go sounding like this. You know what I mean? And I've
what
had
if people
moments,
like it better? Then you got to stay like this.
I know that I got to like start smoking again or something like that. But yeah, it's like it's been like harder than I thought.
Yeah.
You're like, I used to get sore throats a lot because my tonsils were so fucked up. My tonsils were 3 times the normal size.
Giant. That's exactly what you want to have 3 times the normal size.
I know. I want that to be my cock imprint, not my throat imprint. That's weird. All this from Jason Siegel's dick. Wow, what a
we got a lot. It was a hot start. We came in hot.
What an improv.
Did you bring a beer up here with you?
No, that's the other problem too for my throat.
For your voice, that's what I was.
I'm taking so much ibuprofen right now that I like don't want to. It's the rational decision. I didn't even offer you whiskey. Would you like some whiskey?
I'll have some if you are, but if not,
I'm not going to have any. That's what I'm saying. Okay. What a team player.
I'm good. I am a team player.
All right, so we have some topics written down, and I'm glad that I'm using what sounds like an obscured voice to do this first one because our pal Kanye West has returned. He's back, baby.
I briefly saw something about this.
This is okay. So Kanye West, very obviously going through like a mental breakdown.
It's coincided with Antonio Brown very well.
Yes.
The two of them seem to have fallen off the deep end around the same time.
Yeah, Antonio Brown, though, significantly less anti-Semitic in his departure from sanity.
He's actually crazy. Like his craziness it knows no bounds, whereas Kanye's craziness seems to be very targeted.
Well, you know the thing I think that's different between those two guys is I think Kanye is genuinely an incredibly intelligent dude, and I think that Antonio Brown is maybe not as intelligent as Kanye.
That's very true. Yes.
But so Kanye West, I thought it started out like kind of funny, like he goes off his pills a couple of years ago, I think. These like manic episodes, he would say like wild fun shit. I actually will admit, I haven't liked his music since graduation. Like nothing has really connected with me since graduation, and that's just an age thing.
Yeah, I think the mid-2000s Kanye West music was like, you know, when the world revolted against Kanye West, it's not like anybody out there was going through their Spotify and taking his music off there. Now, there were the same people that would go burn an NBA player's jersey because he signed with a different team are probably the same ones who would cut out all their favorite Kanye West songs.
So yeah, that's the question. That's a question for you is like, have you had an artist, maybe Kanye's the guy because you're a top 40 guy, but have you had an artist like, are you still playing Michael Jackson at the Akita household? Okay.
Dude, I still got R. Kelly, man.
Hell yeah, dude. This is, wow, I did not realize
And I don't condone what these guys did, but I mean, if they're hits, they're hits.
Yeah. Wow, so you're that committed to the hits?
It's not like I'm not like I didn't delete it off my liked songs.
Gotcha.
But I'm not going down the street bumping the remix to Ignition to let everyone know.
When it comes on, you turn it down, but still kind of like, bob your head a little bit.
I don't believe I can fly.
I've had this experience. Louis C.K. is like my favorite comedian ever.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure. I did a lot of research on the Louis C.K. thing to make sure I could still consume his comedy. I'm like a defense attorney in his case. Now, not to say that I think what he did was like great. I'm not saying that.
Speaking of dicks, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of dicks. Speaking of super impressive, I'm sure, dicks. He has described it in great detail in a way that makes me not think that it was incredibly impressive. But I know a lot about it. We could argue, if anyone wants to argue about it, I guarantee you haven't read or listened to as much shit about it as I have. I will say I tried to listen to this radio series called Unmasked with Ron Bennington, where he interviews comedians. And one of the greatest episodes of it ever is the Louis C.K. episode. And I listened to the Louis C.K. episode, and it was like so meaningful to me to hear him talk about comedy in the way that he did back then.
Yeah.
This is pre-conflict, and he was just talking about like how like the reason he works hard and all that stuff. And then I was like, well, could I listen to Cosby? Could I listen to a Cosby? And this is like, by the way, I had actually heard the Cosby allegations before Hannibal Buress brought them, but I was like, I don't know what the truth is to this.
Yeah.
Or like, obviously, I don't think any of us, we didn't know the depth or the breadth of these accusations, right? And I put it on, man, and I couldn't do it. I made it like the moment he started to become like the moral arbiter.
Cosby, yeah.
Yeah, it was fuck you, dude. You are the biggest rapist in the history of America, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cosby as a comedian, I never found his comedy that funny.
Gotcha.
Because it was for a generation that wasn't ours.
Yeah.
It was for probably 2 generations above us, really. I mean, that's when he got his start. And yeah, I mean, he was one of those guys who his comedy was very preachy, very holier than thou.
Well, he as a person was very preachy too.
Yeah, and it's like that can work in comedy if you do it right, but it works better on a sitcom. That's probably why that TV show was so popular.
Well, I mean, he was a super famous comedian. I bet you he could still. I mean, there's enough people that I think find like whatever they want him to be innocent bad enough or whatever the thing is that he could probably still sell a lot of tickets. He was selling out shows like crazy before.
I saw the other day. I saw somebody tweet. Just a tweet that popped up on my timeline somehow, and it had a screenshot of the Cosby Show, and they were watching it on some TV station. I can't remember what station it was, but like, it's back.
Oh, really?
It's back. This is the first sign I'd ever seen, because like when all this stuff went down with Cosby, and he went on trial for all of that stuff. The show was gone. I mean, and that was one of those shows. It was like Seinfeld. It was everywhere for the longest time. You could change to any of those syndicated cable channels and find it.
Probably actually on more stations than Seinfeld, because I felt like it had a non-exclusive syndication. Yeah.
Then it was gone, and it was just like a weird thing to see that you can actually go back and watch that show now.
Yeah, and obviously what he did is like horrendous, and it's also crazy to me that like Louis has ever been included in the same conversation as him or like Harvey Weinstein or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has something to do with like they all kind of occurred around the same time, right?
Sure.
Like it all came crashing down.
Yeah, I get that, but it's like, yes, they're all like faces of the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
But you're like, they're very different. Obviously, these are very different crimes.
Yeah.
But that's interesting to me that you're like R. Kelly, because when Kanye comes on, the first time I was like, am I going to be cool with this? And then I was like, I fucking love this song. Like the
old stuff is good. Like the nice thing is most of his new stuff sucks. So
you and I are just old men in that opinion though, because I agree with you, but it's like not. I think that the youth prefer the new stuff, which is insane to me.
He's adjusted his style to how the music has adjusted, temporarily.
Well, he's kind of like pushed it too.
Yeah, and then also like, dude, I'm really big into sneakers, and his deal with Adidas was one of the biggest things. He single-handedly saved the Adidas brand.
Did you own any of those shoes ever?
No. I didn't own any Yeezys because, first of all, they are really pricey. Like, you can get like comparable sneakers that, like, I will actually buy and resell sneakers. I've been doing it for like 20 years.
This guy.
I know, but I like sneakers too.
Yeah.
And there was not a lot of value in Yeezys because they cost like $220 retail. So then, if you're flipping them and making like $100 on it, it's like hardly worth it.
It's a lot of risk.
It's a lot. It's just,
Sure.
it's not a great investment basically.
So,
but it saved the brand. So he was a big deal there.
It seems you're a sneaker guy, so maybe it seems like he, and not to invoke the name of your most recent podcast, but it's like he popularized completely athleisure shoes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it really, like, that look, it started with Adidas. And I remember talking to a guy, like a friend of a friend one time. We were, like, hanging out, and he was, like, pretty high up at Nike. And we were just having conversations about how Adidas had forced Nike to just, like, completely shift their direction.
Gotcha.
That's super impactful. Like, because Nike is usually the trendsetter, right?
Right.
In sneakers. And they had to change they had to do a pivot because of Kanye West and Adidas. So it's just
crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think how much influence that one person had. So now that we've gotten to this point with him where he really, mental health aside, he really got big, even bigger than he was before in like a very short period of time, 5-year period or so. When the Adidas thing took off, and he's still making music, he's losing his mind running for president or whatever, but all of that stuff kind of coincided. It was the perfect storm.
Yeah, well, and I remember hearing him on Joe Rogan, and I had Monica Nevi, friend of the podcast, Monica Nevi, on my other podcast, Nobody Likes Casey McLean, second mention of I think I mentioned it earlier.
Good cross promotion.
And we talked about when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, because I'm not like a religious listener to that. I'll listen when he has comics I like on, or when he had Kanye on. Like, I think Kanye is maybe the most interesting guy of our generation. And so this is like pre-anti-Semitism. And you listen to him and you're like, there's plenty of stuff here I disagree with. But when this dude is like, I should be president, I'm like, I mean, I don't fucking like any of the people that are running for president. So why because I disagree with you on a couple things, and then now you're like, fuck, that would have been horrible. Like, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been really bad.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, he's a tough guy to talk about, at times, because I think especially for our generation, 20 years ago when he first became popular, we were in that impressionable state in our life where music really hits you and it means something. And a lot of those songs that came out back then were they were such big hits that no one was going to avoid them anyway. You were going to like them whether you liked it or not because it was everywhere. But, and then to have it all just, for him to have like a meteoric rise and then an amazing fall of his own creation. Unlike a lot of these other guys that have, trials and tribulations that lead to their downfall, this was all his own doing.
I feel like he did kind of take the entire hit for anti-Semitism in hip-hop, though. Like, there's a lot of people like Ice Cube, who's like doing fucking kids movies now, who was like a member of the Nation of Islam. There's like Nation of Islam, by the way, being the organization that Louis Farrakhan, like these are people who are at least adjacent to anti-Semitism, and Kanye is the guy. They went after Kanye instead of like many of the institutional rappers that were also like Nick Cannon, like we were talking about.
Yeah,
Nick Cannon has gotten a free pass, and Kanye had to, Nick Cannon, the very famous rapper, has gotten a pass, and Kanye took all the shit.
Yeah, I
you
think
moved your mic like, am I doing something wrong?
No, I just wanted to lean back. I was
all
like,
right.
I'll be honest. Yesterday, I raked leaves for like 90 minutes, and I woke up this morning feeling like I got hit by a truck. So I cannot. If I stand up and start doing stretches in the middle of this, that's why.
What is your least favorite thing about being a homeowner? Because when you and I met, we both lived in apartments, and now we're both homeowners with wives.
Yeah, God, what is my least favorite thing? Probably just the unexpected breakages of things. Like right now we have a leaning fence. That sucks. Because like today was very windy. Yeah. So every time we have a windy ass day, I just keep expecting to hear a fence come crashing down.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not a cheap thing. Like it's annoying to go out and rake leaves or whatever, but it doesn't bother me that much. It's the unexpected fixes that you don't have someone there to take care of.
Yeah.
For you.
I'm a little lucky. My dad is a remodel contractor. He's still alive. I've done this. He was still alive. He's just not a remodel contractor. He's retired.
Yeah.
But he like specifically turn of the century houses. So my house is like in his wheelhouse of shit. So
that's perfect.
He was the first. We had a saga getting our house, but he looked at like the inspection record on our house.
Yeah.
When the inspector sent it, and he's like, "Yeah, you're gonna be fine."
Yeah.
For a while. But there's stuff like our furnace was making a noise for a while. Mm-hmm. And it's like, fuck, I guess I had to fix my garage door the other day. Never fixed a garage door in my life. I don't know how people live before YouTube, by the way.
You become very handy without knowing that you're handy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's basically how, it's like how when you're a kid, all dads are handy. And you're like, how? And it's like, because they owned a home. They had to. I
know, they all bought it in their early 20s.
Yeah, it's a little different for us. 30s. Yeah, it's a little different for our generation.
Yeah, I think that's a rough one. I think dealing with like, I never had plunged a sink. Have you plunged a sink at your?
I have the. You should invest in the drain weasel.
Okay, I'll look it up.
It's like an ad seen on TV type product, but you can buy it on Amazon very cheap. It's like this tiny little brush that sticks all the way down your drain.
Oh, I think I bought one of these.
You kind of crank it and then.
So
everything goes out. It's pretty awesome.
The people that lived in our house before, I think that the woman or the man, it's 2023. I can't.
A lot of hair. Huh?
Wore so much makeup.
Oh, okay.
That there was like our just sink would just constantly back up, our bathroom sink. And dude, I plunged it.
Yeah.
And like caked makeup came back up, and my wife doesn't wear a lot of makeup.
Gross.
Dude, it takes a lot. I cleaned a couple nights ago. My daughter vomited into a bucket of toys of hers.
Yeah.
I emptied the bucket and cleaned every toy, never gagged once. For me to gag takes a lot. Nobody edit this together with all that dick conversation earlier, please. But
it's been a lot.
Dude, that like old makeup coming up out of that sink. Oh my God, I almost puked on top of it.
It's gross, man. Anytime you're doing anything with a drain or sink, and you don't know what all that stuff is.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Have you pulled your wife's hair out of the like shower drain?
Oh yeah. I did it like a week ago.
What a brutal endeavor.
It's not great. I take it and show her.
Of course, you
gotta
must.
Be like,
you must. It's like a dog or a cat bringing a mouse to the front door.
And I don't have hair, so I mean, it's like we know this is all coming from one source. Yeah.
Yeah. It's animal, and also it's like 3 feet long. Yeah. There's no way.
But when I was living in an apartment previously, the shower drain would back up sometimes, and I would clean it out.
Yeah.
And it's hair from the people who lived there previously. It's hair from all walks of life. That's disgusting.
Well, why would you think that's true in an apartment but not in a house?
No, it could definitely be the case in a house too.
Okay.
It's just there were probably more people cycling through that apartment than there ever were this house. Yeah.
It's a greater variety, but no difference in volume.
No, it's all bad. It's all bad.
So anyways, Kanye's back, baby.
Back to Kanye. Yeah. We really veered off course there, but we found our way.
Kanye has been cured of his anti-Semitism. The great Kanye West has been cured of his anti-Semitism.
Thanks to Jonah Hill.
Yeah, watching Jonah Hill. Here, I want you to read it. Well, not because I want you to.
I'll read it.
It's just because my voice.
Your voice is shot. Yes. Here's what Kanye had to say. The picture on Instagram is just the movie poster of 21 Jump Street, which... Frankly, if you haven't seen 21 Jump Street, you haven't lived because
I haven't lived. I haven't seen
You haven't seen it?
I remain an anti-Semite, apparently, because...
it's one of the great comedies of whatever year it came out. 2010, maybe, somewhere around there. Anyway, this is what Kanye had to say. Watching Jonah Hill in 21 Jump Street made me like Jewish people again. End of sentence. New paragraph. No one should take anger against one or two individuals and transform that into hatred towards millions of innocent people. Another new paragraph.
This next sentence I'd like you to read exactly as it's written.
This is exactly verbatim, okay? No Christian can be labeled anti-Semite knowing Jesus is Jew.
Yeah.
It's like a really bad, like a child wrote that.
This is a thing that he has persisted in doing. The Jesus is Jew, not Jewish, not a Jew.
So
Jesus
to see,
is
like,
Jew.
rank the level of Judaism. It's like
it's I mean, good for you. Whatever it's got to be, that pulls you out of the mire of anti-Semitism. But
he does say, "Thank you, Jonah Hill. I love you." At the end.
That's nice. And then
did Jonah Hill respond to this in any way? Do we know?
Oh, that's a good question. This comedian that I'm friends with on the internet, Black Stever, when he calls himself Elon Stribling is his name. He said, wait until you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, which, boy, do I agree. And that might make him hate Jews again, to be honest with you. If he didn't like him before, I don't know that that's going to...
I don't understand what about Joe... Now, having seen the movie 21 Jump Street, would you even know? I guess maybe
I haven't seen it, by the way.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, if they allude to Jonah Hill's character being Jewish. Maybe they do. I don't recall.
Maybe.
But, hey, man, whatever it takes, I guess.
Yeah, any port in a storm, any Jew in a storm of anti-Semitism, I suppose.
The amazing thing about this post, and I get Kanye West has an amazing following, but
sure.
Over 3 million likes on this. That's incredible.
Including another comedian, by the way, Willie Dean Sucks, who is Willie Dean, a comedian in the Tacoma. He's a newer comic in the Tacoma scene. Willie Dean Sucks is a frequent liker of Kanye West's.
Just anything?
I kind of wonder if he's liking it for the right reasons or not,
It's bad.
Do you have a water? Do you need a water?
No, I got water right here. It's hiding.
Does it have ice in it this week? Oh, it does.
There's like a little bit left over. A little bit. Yeah, man. I guess Kanye's back.
Adidas, call up Adidas.
I don't know.
Is the Adidas deal dead?
It's dead, but there's been speculation that it might. Adidas has all this product left over,
right,
from Kanye's, being with them, and they can't move it. They don't know what to do. There was talk for a while that they were just going to rebrand it with a different name and sell it.
Sure.
But they must have gotten some feedback that wasn't going to go well.
I heard some rumors that they might lose like $1 billion as a result of this. You don't realize how much of a following one person has until something like that occurs. So, first off, probably will change the way that Adidas handles brand deals in the future, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would think so.
Though I disagree with his anti-Semitism, obviously, and you have to say this in 2023, there's a part of me that having fuck you money and using it to say fuck you is the point of having fuck you money.
Yeah, you got it. See, here's the thing, though, and I think Dave Chappelle mentioned this many times in his past. You have to hate everybody equally.
Sure.
That's the key. If you hate everybody equally, people actually respect that. If you decide I'm just going to hone in on one type of person and hate that type, doesn't matter if it's racial, religious, whatever it might be. People aren't going to respect that. You got to hate equally.
And what you're out there for is people who respect hatred. That's who you want on your side.
And there are a lot of people out there like that. There really are.
Okay. I want to talk about a couple things real quick. So I told you I was going to bother you with draft stuff. I've restrained myself a lot, but I want to give you my thoughts on what I think the Seahawks, our favorite football team, is going to do. What they're going to do in the draft.
Okay, let's hear it.
And I want you to give me your feedback.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of every year, like going back to when they were rumored they were going to draft Michael Crabtree. Everybody knew they were going to draft Michael Crabtree. That was the projected pick on like 85. And I was like, there's no way.
Yeah, they never. It's like with sports betting. If 85% of the money is on one team, bet on the other team because the public is generally stupid.
I don't know if I'd agree with you, but what I do think is there was no way they were going to take a receiver.
Yeah.
In the first round, it was like 14th. They weren't going to take a receiver 14th. Similarly, like there's been years where they were going to take, whatever. I think like Marshawn was drafted before them, and maybe they would have drafted him, but the media has a very difficult time projecting the Seahawks.
The Seahawks never take who everybody thinks they're going to take,
except for Russell Okung, who's this administration's previous highest pick.
Yeah, the first pick they ever made.
Yeah, Charles Cross, the 9th overall pick.
Yeah.
It was like the kind of consensus.
Yeah, they don't screw up the top 10. It's
sure.
10 to the end of the first round where things get weird.
I think Earl Thomas was 14, I believe.
That was a steal. I mean,
yeah.
Because I remember that draft, everyone thought they were going to take Taylor Mays.
Sure.
Because he played for Pete Carroll at USC.
And I think they wanted, because he's a Seattle Ties guy, they wanted him.
But they didn't take him. They avoided Taylor Mays and took Earl Thomas instead, and much better pick. Taylor Mays was a bust in the NFL.
Yeah. Also, I think that was the Eric Berry draft, which they didn't get. I think they would have taken Eric Berry.
Yeah, I think that might have been.
At least people thought they might take him at 6, I believe, is when Okung got taken. Anyway, so the Seahawks, I think they build from the trenches. They've done that. And right or wrong, they build from the trenches, right? Like they've drafted defensive linemen, running backs, which is intensely frustrating, and offensive linemen in the first round typically. They drafted Earl Thomas. That's an exception. Who else? Is there another exception in the first round since they've been?
I mean, they've made, like, some of the guys that they've picked that were reaches turned out to be okay. Like, Bruce Irvin's a really good example.
You are on Bruce Irvin's dick, and
he was the first one that everyone was like, this is a reach. And then he ended up, if you go back and look at that draft, he was one of the better picks in the first round.
Hold on. Let's find.
I think that was 2012, maybe? 2011, 2012.
So, yeah, but the Bruce Irvin one was one where you're like, we talked about this. Everybody thought he could be taken in the second round, or the third, maybe.
Yeah.
The Seahawks leaked a report that the Jets were going to take him with the next pick. Hold on. Let's see what we can find out. I want to take a look at
It's really interesting how in 1 year the narrative on the Seahawks has changed so much. Because last year it was like they have to get this draft right or they could be screwed for the next decade.
Sure.
They got the draft right. And now it's like if they make the right picks this year, they could be a Super Bowl contender. The way that their team is shaping up.
This is, I mean, I think also they've lived so much off of that. Oh, my God. Off of that.
This is why all these, like Pro Football Reference, Baseball Reference, I still go to Wikipedia first. Unless you want a specific stat, the basic information you need about a player is going to be much easier found on Wikipedia.
Yeah, you got all those linked articles. Let's see. It might be an internet connectivity issue right now.
Searching for Jason Segel penis broke your computer. Way to go. The last thing you did before it went down.
All right, let's see if we can quickly get there. I just want to see who was drafted.
2012.
So we got 2012, and was it the 2010 draft was their big?
2012 was their big one because the second round was Bobby. The third round was Russell. So they went Irvin first, then Bobby Wagner, then Russell Wilson.
And was Cam 2011?
Hit. Yeah, Cam and Sherman were 2011. But that's a hell. I mean, the 2012 draft is like heralded as the one that was the best success, and arguably of their first 3 picks, the least impactful was the first round pick, and he was still really good.
Yeah, there's definitely somebody which I could have very easily been wrong, but there was I think I kind of like Chandler Jones, to be honest with you, which he was certainly better than.
Yeah, he turned out to be pretty good.
Good.
But
like I like David DeCastro a lot too, who was good. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, these are all
they didn't really. I don't think they had a huge need for that position that year.
Anyway, though, the point is, these are the guys they draft. Bruce Irvin is a defensive lineman. They drafted him as a defensive lineman. He was like a rush linebacker in college, West Virginia, but he was going to be a defensive end. Mm-hmm. And then they've also Jalen Carter. I got a little bit schooled on some of the Jalen Carter stuff because he was involved in that crash. His draft stock might make him fall to the Seahawks. So Tyree Wilson is a guy that's been mocked to them a lot. Texas Tech defensive end. I think what they do with the 5th pick, if they draft a quarterback,
Yeah.
which is also on the table, they went and visited every fucking quarterback in the top 4.
Yeah.
If they draft a quarterback, I think that means this is Pete Carroll's last season. I don't think Pete Carroll's sticking around to develop a quarterback.
I would actually
Except there's one guy.
Okay.
Anthony Richardson, the quarterback out of Florida.
Yeah.
That put up like world beater, all-time great combine
He's
numbers.
a combine darling, but an actual gameplay didn't really do a whole lot.
Right, and he can be a contributor years 1 and 2. They have Drew Lock re-signed if they wanted to keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster, and have Richardson be the 3rd-string quarterback, but come in and like Taysom Hill packages.
Yeah, it's possible. I actually think if they were to draft a quarterback, that would mean Pete Carroll would want to stay for a few more years. Like, I think the contract that they signed Geno Smith to basically allows them the freedom to draft a quarterback without posing a threat to Geno, really, because you signed Geno Smith for starter money. He's going to start, but it's such a short-term contract that it allows you to say, hey, we're going to draft this guy in the 1st round, and we're just going to sit him for 2 years. It's going to be like a college. I mean, Pete has done that a lot over the years. He's run the Seahawks like a college program where if he can help it, unless you're a super impact player, he might kind of give you like a redshirt treatment in a way.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of like, I think that at the quarterback position, drafting 5th overall, I think they're going to draft someone who can contribute this year. So I think like my favorite quarterback in the class is C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's got a place. He's not going to get a lot of downs if he gets drafted by Seattle.
I mean, I don't think anyone really knows what they're going to do because,
of course,
like we said,
that's true.
But like they're impossible to predict anyway, and they don't have like some glaring need. And their free agency moves have addressed the glaring needs that they have.
Yeah, that's true. They do have. They had glaring needs on the defensive line,
and they addressed those.
They had glaring needs at like
in the secondary
linebackers too.
Yeah, and they brought back Bobby Wagner. They signed a starting safety. They've got a pass rusher. They fixed
Devin Bush.
Yeah, who can learn from Bobby Wagner, presumably. Sure. But they patched up all these big glaring needs that they had, and now they're in this like luxurious position of being able to really just, if they keep that pick at 5, they can take the best player available on their board regardless of position.
Yeah, so Earl is the one guy, by the way. That's the exception, is they took a defensive back who they believed was a special talent.
Yeah.
I think they're going to take a guy who they think is a special talent. That might mean, because I don't think when they draft Bruce Irvin, they weren't like, they were like, this is the guy we like the best. But I don't think they're like, this guy has the highest ceiling, the lowest floor. I think they're like, this is just the guy that grades out the best.
Yeah, I think like that Bruce Irvin pick, in the years that followed, they really started doing the trade down thing, right? Yeah. And I think, I don't know that they ever thought Bruce Irvin was like this amazing talent, but I bet they wanted to trade that pick down.
And I think that's probably right.
Couldn't do it, or like that wasn't something they hadn't started that trend yet, right? And in the years that followed, it's like unless that player is special, and you think, regardless of where you're at in the 1st round, if they're not a special player, then you might as well trade down and collect some more capital. So I still think that's a real possibility at 5. Like if they don't, there's probably, when you're the 5th pick overall, there's really probably just a small handful of people that you're looking to pick there. And if they're not there or you don't feel good about it, you move out of that pick if you can. Because someone's going to want to come up and take a quarterback if you don't want that pick.
Yeah. I think we're going to hear reports that they loved whichever quarterback is expected to fall to them, right? So if it's CJ, remember there was Ryan Tannehill for this draft.
Yeah, that was the draft, the 2012 draft, where people thought, hey, maybe we'll be able to get Tannehill. Like they might have to trade up to get him, and then they didn't go get him.
There were reports, and they had signed Matt Flynn, but there were reports that Pete Carroll was like in love with Ryan Tannehill, and I liked Ryan Tannehill as a prospect. He might have been. Yeah, I mean,
it took a while for him to develop, but he got there. Like he's been,
but he was never elite, right? He got drafted.
He's fine.
11th? Was it 11th?
It was pretty high up. 8th.
8th, yeah. So and they drafted 15th at a time you thought he was going to fall to him. That's the same as the RG3 and Andrew Luck drafts.
Yeah, he had to get picked high because two quarterbacks went 1-2.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it became like, if you don't take this guy now, you'll never get him.
Well, that's the tough thing to me is like you look at this draft and you're like a guy, Will Levis, Bryce Young. I think you look at those guys and you're like, if I was going to bet who's going to start 100 games in their career and I had to put $100,000 on it, I'd put it on one of the other three guys. But if it was like, who could come to the Seahawks and make a difference at quarterback in 2023, it's packages that include Anthony Richardson and like, whatever. Maybe it's 5-6 downs a game. And then if he gets hurt, you have Drew Lock on the roster still.
I don't think anyone's ever said those words before.
Hey.
Thank God for Drew Lock, am I right?
Thank God I saw him rap on the sideline I was in. I was out until I saw him rap on the sideline.
I mean, they've done everything right this offseason so far. They've kept the guys that they needed to keep. They brought in guys that filled needs for them. Whatever they do in the draft at this point is kind of like icing on the cake. The fact that they have 2 first-round picks is amazing. I really like, as opposed to last year when everyone was super pessimistic about the Seahawks and they surprised you. Now it feels like it's like the 2012 to the 2013 season where the expectations were suddenly raised. The 2012 Seahawks, they have all these young guys. They make the playoffs kind of out of nowhere. And that following year, everyone's thinking Super Bowl, and ultimately they get there and win it, which is great. But I think that it's a very similar arc to what we have now.
Right.
Like last year was kind of a pleasant surprise, and now you're thinking, well, they didn't really screw anything up this offseason, so they could easily be in the mix for a Super Bowl if they just, kind of keep this thing rolling.
I think a thing that they've done a very good job of, and they've been unlucky maybe in like from 2012 to last year, basically.
They had
it's like 10 years.
Yeah, a long stretch of bad drafts.
Yeah, but they draft elite traits.
Yeah.
And that's I think that this like I think that anything that's projecting something other than an elite trait at that number 5 pick is wrong.
Well, and their biggest thing has always been culture. Like most teams that had as bad a stretch of drafts as they had, like they had almost 10 years of bad drafts after, that 2012 class. It really kind of went downhill. Most teams that had that long of a stretch without a great draft would be terrible.
Yeah.
And the Seahawks were still making the playoffs way more often than not. And it's because of that culture. Because, if you build up something that people want to be a part of, that's when you'll get those free agents to come here. That's when people will actually want to play for this team. And the people you have will buy into that. In a lot of ways, they've been like the opposite of the Mariners, and the Mariners have always had these like good draft picks, presumably like, they did, on the surface when the picks were made, it didn't look like they blew them. They did everything they could. Those guys would become busts. The culture was really bad. People didn't want to come play for the Mariners. Like it's not geography because people want to come play for the Seahawks in the NFL.
Yeah.
They don't want to come play for the
Mariners.
Mariners.
Stretch. There was a stretch after the Super Bowl victory where it was like the Seahawks were the new Patriots and Pete was the new Belichick, where it was like everybody wanted to come play here. They wanted to come have to work hard and try to win a Super Bowl. And then they had, obviously the year after the Super Bowl, they were like destination number 1, I think. And then the way they squandered that so quickly was so frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. But I think this year proves it's back. They signed these guys. Like, I don't think anyone thought they were going to go into free agency and make a big splash, and they did.
They did spend a lot of money, though. The thing they were getting in those years was like you'd get like Michael Bennett returning on like a relatively reasonable contract. And when Cliff Averill signed, I think it was 2 years, $15 million. I remember going this is wild. That's that a very good pass rusher wants to come here for 2 years at like a reasonable salary, and now he hasn't left the city, I don't think.
I mean, so many of those guys, and I'm sure, like, in a lot of ways, I think those guys who are now former Seahawks that still live here kind of are like ambassadors for the program, whether they know it or not. They might not be actively doing things, but, guys who still play the game know that those guys came here, liked it so much that they stayed here and they live here. Like, that actually means something to people within that community.
I think that might be the only time when Richard Sherman and Jay Buhner share the same role in a community, I keep seeing Jason Segel penis as one of our...
You just left it up there. I know you'll get back to it later.
Yeah,
after
eventually. We wanted to shit on Spokane.
Let's shit on Spokane. Why not?
Let's start with this. I want to watch the last chunk of the Gonzaga UCLA game because I actually think this was an incredibly smart play by Julian Strother. And I want to tell you why.
This shot. Yeah, this was an amazing.
But I want to tell you, I want to hear your basketball because I think probably basketball strategy is the best where you like have the best.
I love basketball. I've been watching the tournament nonstop. I always watch it. Did you watch this game when it was live?
No, I was.
This Gonzaga UCLA game was one of the greatest basketball games I've ever seen. It was literally, I mean, the entire second half, but really kind of like almost from the jump in the first half. It had this feeling that, like, if you did not score on a possession, it was like the end of the world. And it carried that throughout the entire game, which does not happen very often in a basketball game. It was awesome.
So where we pick up here, 12.4 seconds left. Gonzaga's down 75-76. Gonzaga inbound.
The offensive glass. Chances are you'll get more.
Let's take these closed captions off so we can see get the entire experience.
Chances are you'll get more than
I'm going to pause it right here. 9.8 seconds left.
Yeah.
Opportunity.
Julian Strother takes this like 30-foot three-pointer.
Yeah, it's deep. It's a good look, though. He knew what he was looking for. I mean, it's funny because the game after this, Gonzaga just gets their doors blown off.
Right.
But this game against UCLA, I mean, I watched a lot of UCLA this year. I like watching the Pac-12, and I've obviously watched a lot of Gonzaga too, but I don't like Gonzaga as a Washington fan. But this was an amazing, the look itself, he's stepping into it. He's literally straight on. It's a straight-on three.
Yeah.
30 feet for a guy his size in college and as good of a player he is not like super deep these days.
So he drills it. So the thing I think, so he's got 7.2 seconds left, which is important here because the reason I think this is so brilliant is he shoots this three early in the possession.
Yeah.
So not everybody's set. Guys aren't going to be able to box out. Your chances of getting an offensive rebound on a miss are probably higher here by a significant margin.
Yeah, I'm sure they have you can just tell this was a play of some sort. The way that he got kind of stepped into that three and the ball was handed off to him. And typically with college teams in this situation, down one with like 10 seconds left, you'll see a point guard or, the guy that you want to ISO just kind of dribble it down, take 3 or 4 seconds off the clock and then try to create something with 6 seconds left so that they ultimately get the last shot and the other team doesn't have a chance to score. That play fails way more often than it succeeds.
That's a common in the pros too.
Yeah.
What this is almost guaranteeing them, so let's say he misses this. He made it, which makes it a heroic shot.
Yeah.
First off, he makes it, they're up a score, which means UCLA is probably going to try to tie the game, not win the game.
Yeah, they're up 2.
Right.
Yeah, they were down 1, now they're up 2 after the 3.
If he misses and they get the rebound, they get the opportunity to do that thing, to get that final shot still.
And win the game still. So
if he misses, UCLA gets the rebound.
Yeah.
You foul him, you're essentially in the same position.
Yeah, they can tie it up at that point. Or, if he they theoretically, I guess being up 2, you're not going to foul. You just kind of have to defend against the 3 and just hope for the best. But what they did is they put all the pressure on the other team. This is not the shitting on Gonzaga and Spokane.
No, we're going to get there. We're going to get there because it starts
this
out.
Is like the opposite of that.
The weekend starts out with this amazing game, this amazing finish, all-time great finish. I thought I watched this and I was just blown away.
Yeah.
You're like, this is such an incredibly well-coached team and player.
Yeah.
This moment.
It is like I said, it's one of the best basketball games I've ever seen. I don't have a horse in the race, and I don't like Gonzaga, and I don't particularly care if UCLA wins or loses. But just watching this game, if you happen to, it's one of those games that if you happen to miss it and you really like basketball, go back and find it and just watch it start to finish because it was dramatic throughout, and that doesn't always happen in these types of games. Wow, there's an article about you in the Spokesman Review.
Well, so the next thing that happens is, and I have it on our sheet, is what pops into my feed is Jared Freed, comedian you like a lot.
Yeah.
I've actually met Jared Freed, but not briefly after a show.
Yeah,
because my buddy was opening for him. He would never recognize me. He couldn't pick me out of a lineup. I've never seen him perform. I was just meeting up with a buddy of mine. So, but he's very good. I've seen like clips.
Yeah, he's a good performer for
So
sure.
he gets interviewed by this dude, Ed Condren, at the Spokesman Review.
Yeah.
The newspaper in Spokane, who does every week does an article about the upcoming headliner at Spokane Comedy Club.
Okay.
Jared Freed says that he needs Gonzaga to lose
Yeah.
for the sake of his show, which is like
It's very tongue-in-cheek. It was very tongue-in-cheek.
of course, barely controversial. Now, I'm going to tell my story on this, and then I want to play a clip from Jared Freed, because I was also interviewed by Ed Condren. We talked for like an hour, and I was like, he goes, okay, well, I should be good. And I'm like, what the fuck is he going to publish from this? Like, we just talked. I liked him. He was great.
What kind of questions was he asking you? I mean, I assume his column, if he's just writing about the headliner at the comedy club, it's pretty much, in journalism, would be considered throwaway. Not to diminish your role in this, but
Yeah, so I think I don't think sometimes there's like comedy clubs will have guys go on like local radio, local TV.
Yeah, definitely.
That's usually paid for by the
club.
By the club, yeah.
Yeah.
This is not that. Ed Condren, by the way, like I think wrote for like Rolling Stone.
Yeah, there's just not a lot to write about in Spokane.
Sure, but he was he wrote for like Deadspin for a long time.
Oh, okay.
He's like a longtime journalist. God, my voice sounds so fucking bad. He when we get on the call, we're just like talking about my daughter, talking about my wife, like talking about comedy in general, and he's like talking about Louis C.K. and I'm like, let's not use any of that, because he interviewed him a bunch of times. He's interviewed like Harland. He interviewed like a ton of times, right?
Yeah.
We get to the end and I'm like, fuck, there's like, I don't know what. So I started just saying stuff. He's like, okay, we're good. And I'm like, oh yeah, my whole family's been going to Spokane. I've gone to Spokane my whole life because a bunch of my family lives there.
Yeah.
That wagon's stupid. It's like literally a throwaway thing, and he makes that the headline. And then there's another quote in there.
That just goes to show how boring the rest of the interview must have been.
Dude.
That your throwaway became the subject of the article.
Yeah. And then it says, Tacoma comedian Casey McLean describes Spokane as a Midwest town trying to be a West Coast city. I stand by that. I think that's a great description of Spokane.
I saw some stuff on Instagram, and Jared said something similar to that.
Did he?
It was similar. It was along those lines.
Stole my fucking line, dude.
He might have read that article.
Yeah, he's reading no. So he's we'll go down his Twitter feed a little. He was going off on. Oh no, this is in. We're gonna play him talking to, because this is a very annoying thing. It'll bring it kind of all the way.
What's your name, miss?
Go Zags.
What's that?
Go Zags. Go Zags.
So
Go
this woman
Zags?
says go Zags for Goga.
You guys might not speak English here. Is that all you know how to say is go Zags? I'm like, what's your name? Go Zags! What is it, a cult here? What the fuck is going on? You woods people! All right, well, I'm sorry, I'm judgmental, Gozigs. That's your name now, Gozigs. I thought I was being mean, like, go Zags, nice to meet you. That was the whitest shit I've ever fucking done in my life. That was the most white guilt shit. She's like, go Zags. I'm like, okay, don't mess up the ethnic name. Gozigs, what a beautiful name. Thank you for coming to my show. I'm happy to have you in our country.
He handled that amazingly well.
He did.
Because you could tell initially he was annoyed. It's one of those, it's like when someone gets you to say Seymour Butts,
Yes.
It's along those lines.
When I started comedy, a common thing that would happen at comedy shows is if you mention the Seahawks. It's kind of the thing that happens when you mention Trump now.
Yeah.
Is people they react either negatively or positively.
Yeah.
So when literally I've been at shows where someone mentions the Seahawks and people start a Seahawks chant. You're like, fuck you.
South Sound, man. You got to avoid talking about the Seahawks in the South Sound.
It's so. I love the Seahawks. I love comedy. Don't try to fucking make the show about you, no matter what the thing is. It's so annoying. He's trying to do crowd work for, I'm sure, just to get into a joke.
Yeah.
And this lady wants so badly to be part of the show.
I mean, you obviously know better than I do, but there's always one, and you're never funny. You're
Right.
never funny because no one in the crowd wants to see you. You might get like some sympathy laughs, but really we're trying to support the comedian. We're not on your side.
Even worse as a comic is when the person actually does crush you. It's so fucking demoralizing. Because he does handle it well, and I agree with you exactly what you said. At the beginning, he's annoyed, but he also knows that everybody else in the crowd also likes the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Also, can we say go Bulldogs? What's the go Zags?
The Zags, man.
Fuck that. That sucks. Go Seas.
His article, basically coming out and saying he wanted them to lose for a show. It makes a lot of sense, obviously. It's like, if he's going to sell out the club, Gonzaga can't be playing. Like, he had some idea that Gonzaga was a big thing in Spokane, but I don't think most people outside of the state of Washington understand that for Spokane, Gonzaga is everything. It's their college team. It's basically a pro team.
Yeah.
It's literally, I've never seen a community rally around one college team the way they rally around their basketball team, because they don't have football. It's just like all this other stuff.
And they don't
love
have
the Zags.
There's no D1 football team in Spokane, which is kind of odd because it is a big city. Okay. It's as big as Tacoma, its population is the same as Tacoma. There's obviously there's like Washington State, but you're like, it's not only is it the only thing in Spokane, but outside of like Washington State University and like the Idaho Vandals, it's the last thing for a while. Like, there's no pro team until you get to like Minnesota or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a unique bond that they have with their team, which is very respectable. It's just so weird. Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's weird. Like, there's a lot of people that live in Seattle that do not care about the Washington Huskies, and why should they? But those same types of people in Spokane, whether they were ever going to go to college or not, still love the Zags.
Yeah, in Washington, or in Western Washington, you get shit on for not going to UW and rooting for UW, and I feel like there's none of that apprehension in Spokane at all.
In Eastern Washington, everybody is, most of them are Cougar fans.
Right.
But if you're in Spokane or the immediate vicinity, they're all Zags fans. It's like, you all didn't go there. First of all, it's a private Jesuit school, so that in and of itself could add a weird wrinkle.
Adam Morrison lived in my grandpa's neighborhood, so I should get to claim some small percentage of Zags fandom. Yeah, I mean, I think he handles it well. I'm not like, it's strange, but it's also kind of enviable, especially I'm also a Huskies fan.
Yeah.
And I remember when the Huskies, this is my memory of it, and I'm sure you remember it better, when the Huskies broke off the yearly like rivalry game, and you're like, oh, you guys, like, the Huskies fucked up.
Yeah, I think this gets brought up every year around this time, because typically the Husky basketball team sucks.
Yeah.
But
it didn't then. Back then it didn't suck.
No. But now, I mean, people are always asking or wondering why there's a segment of Husky fans that don't like Gonzaga. Now, the thing I hate about Gonzaga fans in general is that they're like soccer fans, where if you don't like their thing, they're mad at you about it. Like, I'm a baseball fan. I know a lot of people think baseball is boring. I see their point, and I'm not going to try to convert them.
Sure.
If you don't like baseball, that's fine. I don't need you to like baseball to feel good about myself. But Gonzaga Bulldogs fans, if you don't like Gonzaga, they need you to like Gonzaga to feel good about themselves. And I don't know why that is. It's like this weird like insecurity about their school or their team, or I don't know what it might be. But you got to look inside yourself and find out why, because it's a weird thing. But the reason why Washington fans just don't like him, I mean, that rivalry game getting broken off, there's kind of this weird backstory to it. And I was going to UW at the time, but when Lorenzo Romar and his staff took over at UW, they got busted right away for like illegally recruiting Josh Heitfeld, who is from one of the podunk cities in Washington, 6'10", amazing basketball player, ultimately goes to Gonzaga and is a star there for their good teams in the early 2000s. But the Huskies were recruiting him in some way that they shouldn't have, I guess. But to hear the stories told, they were doing what all coaching staffs do, and Gonzaga took exception to the Huskies coming into their side of the state, going after a guy that they wanted, and they kind of broke the code, if you will, and got them in trouble.
Right.
So it kind of sets off this, the Huskies, this is their new regime. They're going to get good in a year or two, But right away, there's a lot of animosity between
Right.
these coaching staffs. And now it spreads to the fans of the team. And it just so happens that the Huskies get really good in a short amount of time under Lorenzo Romar, as the Zags are in the middle of their run of being very good. And for, a short time when both programs were competitive, you really hated each other. It's in the last 10 years, things have changed quite a bit because the Huskies have really fallen off. But if
Right.
you're my age, if you're around my age or older, you probably hate Gonzaga if you're a Washington.
Washington kind of double fucked themselves because not only did they get bad,
Yeah.
but they stopped playing a marquee game.
Oh, for sure.
And it's also like, by the way, and I mean, this is like a pretty commonly held thing, I think, but like these Gonzaga teams, it's like hard to not give them high seeds in the tournament.
Yeah.
But they almost always underperform those seeds, right? Like they're almost always.
I mean, they typically have underperformed in the tournament. There's no denying that they're good. I
Sure.
mean, there's no denying that. And as a basketball fan and a Husky fan, I wish they still played that.
Yeah.
Or I wish they were playing that
But
game
it would be
every year.
like a winnable, it would have been a competitive, interesting marquee game, even in the years where you weren't great.
Yeah, because there's the in-state rivalry games. Even if one team sucks, it gives them that much more motivation
Right.
to win that game, really.
Yeah.
It might be the only game they care about all year if they really
Yeah.
suck that bad.
Well, it's also like because they play in a smaller conference, you might be the most athletic team,
Yeah.
or one of the most athletic teams, whatever their non-conference schedule is,
Yeah.
being the driver. So you might have, because those teams are also, the thing they do that's amazing is these aren't like, they're not pulling like Duke recruiting classes.
The other teams in the WCC are
No,
Gonzaga.
Gonzaga. Gonzaga's like they're.
I mean, they are now, but that's only like in the last 5 to 10 years.
I would let's go see recruiting.
Their recruiting is pretty good now, but I get your point. I mean, a few years ago, they were somehow winning with all these guys that didn't look like they should be any good at basketball.
Yeah,
And they've always done a good job of finding people that were kind of unknown. Like Corey Kispert a few years ago was from the Seattle area, went to King's High School, and he wasn't like, he kind of came out of nowhere, and now he's in the NBA,
Right.
So they do a good job of finding guys, but
yeah. I guess these most recent classes have been pretty good.
yeah, the last 5 or so years, they've had pretty big recruits. They've been keeping up with the Dukes of the world.
But I mean, even still, you're talking about like since 2000, and this is like 24/7 sports, so do with it what you want. But they've had 3 5-star recruits, and let's see what Duke has done, because it's got to be.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, you're like 5. You're like, God damn, how many 5?
Yeah, there's no comparison. They're all, Gonzaga is always going to have a chip on its shoulder, and I understand why their fans.
I'm still scrolling, by the way.
Yeah, still 5 stars. I understand why
This
they're.
is fucking crazy.
There you go. It stops right there.
Good. I mean, it was fucking
It's a lot of scrolling.
48 5-star recruits in that period of time.
a lot.
Of course, we're talking about the last 5 years. I don't want to try to figure out how to filter this stupid table, but
Yeah, I mean, Duke is kind of like the elite of the elite, but Gonzaga's getting up there. But they'll always have a chip on their shoulder. They're small town.
yeah.
We just talked about how they have nothing else in that town, really.
Yeah, they have Spokane Comedy Club, where I will be May 11th through 13th. Come on out. Me, Harland Williams, and Adam Tiller.
2 sources of entertainment.
Yeah,
the
that's
Comedy
right.
Club and Gonzaga basketball. And luckily,
Yes.
you'll be going when basketball season is done.
I won't have to deal with Go Zags, hopefully.
You might.
Lord willing.
But
the Jesuit God willing, whatever that guy is.
Now that they're talking about all this expansion in conferences, Gonzaga's name has come up with the Pac-12. It's come up with some of the other conferences that are looking to expand. As much as I hate Gonzaga, I would be fine with them being a basketball team in the Pac-12. I think it would raise the level for the entire conference.
I think we've jumped the shark on traditional conferences to the point where it's like, who fucking cares anymore?
No, now at this point, just collect the best schools. Like the fact that San Diego State is 95% going to be in the Pac-12, and now they're a Final Four team.
Right.
Like that is amazing timing. Perfect. This
Yeah.
is exactly what we needed.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Do we have anything else before? Oh, Lamar Jackson wants to get traded. It's interesting because I'm actually surprised that, because I'm trying to think, who was the last guy? The guy I remember the most distinctly is Joey Galloway when the Cowboys signed him off of the franchise tag and gave the Seahawks 2 first-round picks.
Yeah.
Think about what has been given up for quarterbacks, like to trade up for a coin flip on, like RG3, what they gave up for him.
Yeah.
And of course, Lamar Jackson also is going to require a lot of money.
He's 26 years old. He's already won an MVP. It's a weird situation, man, that nobody seems to want him.
He's going to be the most expensive quarterback in football. But also, like, he's asking for Deshaun Watson money, essentially, or maybe a little bit more, with less draft pick compensation, with obviously less reputational damage from bringing him in.
Yeah, it's hard to explain because just a year ago, the whole Deshaun Watson thing was going down, and he got a ton of money to go be a quarterback after sitting out for an entire year.
Yeah.
With all of these legal troubles hovering over him, Lamar Jackson has none of that baggage.
Right.
And no one seems to want to trade for him. Now, you could make the argument that trading for him or any quarterback is so cost prohibitive for the rest of your team that it's not worth it. But that hasn't, up till this point, that's never stopped anybody.
Yeah, I mean, they did it for, like, Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
Who was older. And, I mean, I think one thing about Lamar Jackson that people would be, like, rightfully worried about is his style of play makes him maybe prone to injury. And he's been injured in the last couple of years. However, it's like, I also think people are, like, very quick to obviously point to racism when it's a black quarterback.
Yeah.
Collusion.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that argument at the quarterback position in 2023. We're talking like 3 of the first 4 and probably 4 of the first 5 quarterbacks taken in this draft are going to be black quarterbacks. A huge percentage, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but like the Seahawks, I mean, if you go down the rosters, it's like a huge percentage of quarterbacks in the NFL are black now. Lamar Jackson has been like a thorn in the side of the Ravens.
Yeah, I think the collusion, because since it's been like a month or so of this now where people have been talking about collusion with Lamar Jackson. I don't think people are talking about it from a racial perspective. I think it's more just like the league is colluding against him, so he has to stay with the Ravens, and they can basically underpay him and reset this quarterback salary market.
I think that. I definitely think that's
and I think the reason why I wouldn't dismiss collusion is because you've seen all these owners do it with Colin Kaepernick. Like they clearly got away with it.
That's on a racial on a racist. Maybe not because he's black, but because of racist reasons, I think.
Yeah, or at the very least, you could say political, right?
Like but political
at the very least. It's wrapped up in racism.
His activism is against racism.
Right, yes, and they got away with it. They got away with it.
They did have to pay him some money, but still,
yeah, yes. I mean, it was a drop in the bucket. They got away. They effectively blackballed a player from the NFL for doing what a lot of people would say is nothing wrong, and probably right about that.
Yeah.
And now they're, so to think that the NFL owners are not powerful enough to force a quarterback to stay with the team and maybe get underpaid as a result, I think they certainly are capable of that. But I'm kind of like you, where it's like, I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle. A lot of times with sports teams and guys like this, there might be something going on behind the scenes with this person that we know nothing about. The public knows nothing about. And it's like Russell Wilson. The team has done a great job keeping any kind of like culture clashes under wraps.
Right.
Maybe that's going on here. I'm not saying it is. How would I know? But those types of things happen all the time. And, you could also draw on the Russell Wilson trade from last year, which would make teams gun shy.
That's fair.
Lamar showed this past year.
But he's also 33 or 34 years old.
Right, versus 26. Yeah. I mean, but this past year with Lamar was very strange. I think, people thought he was going to play, and then he basically chose to sit out the rest of the year, and no one really knew why. Like the public never really found out why. I'm sure people behind the scenes know, and I'm sure people that aren't with the Ravens behind the scenes know.
Of course.
So there could be a lot more going on there that we don't know about, but
it's also a guy who is, I don't think playing 16 games is the only thing in the world, but you're a guy who's never played 16 games in a season.
Yeah.
so he technically played. I don't even know. Maybe he held for some snaps or something. And I don't know. It technically says he played 16 games in his rookie season, but
he only started 7. Yeah, I think they were doing some of those packages.
That's right. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, but that's the only season. The point is that's the only season he's played all 16 games. Since then, the last 2 years especially, he's only been there for 12 each season. So that's something to worry about for sure. But not to this level. I mean, no one is interested in this guy.
I mean, Matt Stafford was like a guy who was a career disappointment, basically.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with the collusion argument is that in any given year, there's only like a couple teams that need a quarterback, right? Like, there's only like 2 or 3 teams that really need a quarterback to the point that they would mortgage their future to go get him.
Kind of. I mean, the problem, I think, with that argument is that like Kirk Cousins got a fully guaranteed contract. Like
I think it's a year. I totally get what you're saying, but it also goes year by year. Like, what's the incentive to trade for a quarterback this year when you have this very quarterback heavy draft? Like there's not a huge incentive to do that when you can get a quarterback on their rookie contract that is capable of starting this year. That's not going to cost you anything in like trade collateral and barely cost you anything in salary.
I get what you're saying. If you're like the Colts, the Texans, the Panthers, who now traded up. But again, it's like, what is the thing? Is that guy that you're going to give up all that draft capital for is like a coin flip. And Lamar Jackson has proven himself to be a productive NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think it's not only the collusion, obviously, being on the salary makes sense, but it's the salary is a part of that too. The brutal thing about the Percy Harvin trade, for example, was not only do you trade for this guy, you give up all that draft capital, and then you have to pay him market value.
Yeah.
It's a huge hit.
Well, I think like in the NFL in general, there's kind of like this market correction that seems to be occurring, and it like unfortunately for Lamar, it happened this year.
Right.
And I think just a lot of the moves of the past few years have made these teams want to correct that market because the trades we all just listed, Matt Stafford, Russell Wilson, guys like that.
Well, the Deshaun Watson one's the craziest.
And Deshaun Watson, that's the Browns.
I understand.
2 crazy teams, the Browns and the Texans. But no, I agree. But all 3 of those trades, they cost the franchises a ton.
Yeah.
A ton of money. Not just trade capital, but salary cap for the future, and that really prohibits them from going out and making the rest of their team better. And if it blows up in your face, like it definitely already has with Russell and the Broncos, like it kind of has with Matt Stafford and the Rams. I mean, they won a championship, which is all that really matters. But now this year, everyone's gone. They're starting fresh, basically, and that's kind of a sunk cost into Matt Stafford. He barely played last year, and who knows what'll happen with Deshaun Watson? But it's not like it was that great last year in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he'll probably be better. It's unfortunate for Lamar Jackson, but it's also like, how are you? And maybe Tampa Bay probably doesn't have the cap space, but who has the cap space? Like you could, if you sign him to a deal, you can do all the goofy things they do with the cap.
Yeah. I mean, I look, like I said, I would never put it past the NFL to actually collude.
Right.
Like I remember when Barry Bonds. People would talk about collusion with Barry Bonds, and it was like this is like there's no basis for this though. And baseball hasn't shown that they're on the same page with these sorts of things. Whereas the NFL is like NFL owners are a unified front. Even though they might bicker amongst each other about little issues, they seem to always unite on big stuff like Kaepernick and possibly like somebody like Lamar. So I would never put it past them, but I also think that there's a whole lot of reason, especially with the quarterback draft class you have this year, to not trade. Like if you have to trade up, if you're one of those quarterback needy teams that's right now at the back half of the first round, you probably feel a lot better about trading up to draft one of those rookie quarterbacks than give up twice as much to go get Lamar Jackson, plus your salary cap issues.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that it's actually giving up twice as much to get Lamar Jackson. However, like anyway.
No, I get what you're saying. It's you'd be giving up fair value for that player. But the bigger issue is that if you're trading to get a rookie quarterback versus trading to get Lamar, one of them allows you to still build your team up.
There certainly has been an increased emphasis on winning while the quarterback's on his rookie deal. So maybe that's...
Or finding the diamonds in the rough, like Geno, or like Jared Goff is another good example of that in Detroit last year.
But those guys haven't won Super Bowls. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks win a Super Bowl on their rookie deal, and then the team struggles to win when they get their big extension.
Yeah.
You want to play the home run game?
I'm ready.
This is like probably the length. This is like the perfect length of podcast.
The last week was.
It was excessive last week, and my voice really was like in.
That's probably why your voice is still shut this week, because we went off the rails last week. We just kept going.
Did we drink last week?
No, we actively made a point not to. That's 2 weeks in a row.
Wow.
3 weeks in a row, actually.
My God, we're losing our way. Okay. I'm going to... Hold on, I had it.
You want me to go first? I got a guy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I got a guy for you. It's opening week, which is very exciting in Major League Baseball. The Mariners kick off their season playing Cleveland. So I found a retired Cleveland professional.
We've done a lot of Cleveland players. This is good.
Yeah, Cleveland guy. But I feel like this is one of the most famous Cleveland players of our generation, at least.
Okay.
Not known for being a home run hitter by any means, but he had a pretty lengthy career. Center fielder, also a point guard from the University of Arizona, Kenny Lofton.
You're in my wheelhouse because I genuinely believe. Did you know? So wins above replacement, Kenny Lofton is like roughly tied with Ichiro.
His career WAR is 68.
That is a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah.
Ichiro, first ballot Hall of Famer. I believe Kenny Lofton in his first year of eligibility got like 3% of the votes and was not eligible to remain on the ballot.
Yeah, the thing that really works against Kenny Lofton is outside of the run that probably you and I best know him for, which was in Cleveland. The end of his career, the last 5 years of his career, he was everywhere.
Right.
He was on a different team, two teams a season, basically. And he's one of those guys that like the recency bias really hurts him because he didn't end so well. But
he was also a guy that walked in an era that didn't appreciate walks.
Yeah, and he was a great base stealer. I mean, everybody remembers him for that. He led the league like 5 times, I think. He was a 6-time All-Star. From 94 to 99, those were all consecutive.
Yeah. Kenny Lofton is a guy, so obviously I'm not looking at his home run column very much.
Yeah.
But a guy who I think his career is vastly underappreciated.
Yeah, he's a victim of the steroid. There's a lot of those. There's a lot of victims of the steroid era, but he's certainly one of those because his best years were 94 to 99 in the middle of the steroid era. But he ended up playing 17 seasons. That's a long time to play.
17 seasons, 6-time All-Star. I feel like it's going to be very hard to be way off because he obviously wasn't a power hitter.
Yeah, he's an everyday player, though. You know that, and this was obviously before platoons were really a thing. So they were running him out there in center.
Can you say platoons again?
Platoons.
Nobody else says it like that.
Platoon.
There we go. Let's get a real quick pronunciation guide.
You want his career batting average? This is probably another thing that hurts him, and it's really stupid.
Yeah.
Career batting average 299.
Yeah,
1 point under where.
What's his career on base?
If he was career 300, he'd probably already be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
His career on base percentage is 372. His career OPS is 794. That's pretty good for a guy who's not a power hitter.
Platoon.
There we go.
Platoon.
Man. Yeah, Kenny Lofton, man. But I don't think he even has, like Ricky Henderson used to hit a lot of home runs. He hit a lot of leadoff home runs, like leading the game off.
Because Ricky wanted to be a power hitter. Ricky thought he was a power hitter, even if he wasn't.
Wait,
before you give the number, can we just talk about this really quick? Do you remember the year? And I'm looking at the transaction. Oh, okay. So in 97, he gets traded to Atlanta. You remember that? He gets traded to Atlanta in 97. He got traded by Cleveland with Alan Embry, a lefty reliever, to the Braves for Marquise Grissom and David Justice. Pretty fair trade. Those guys were both like decent hitters. But he becomes a free agent after that season and goes right back to Cleveland. So you kind of forget he was ever there in Atlanta. He was there for 1 season and then bounced.
I think only because of the guys that came back, basically, is the reason I remember that.
Yeah. It was a weird time. Anyway. Let's hear it. Let's hear this number.
So, 17 seasons. I think I'm going to be high. But my aim is to not be too far off.
Okay.
Fuck, now I feel like I am going to be far off, though. 37 home runs.
Oh, you are far off.
Fuck me. What?
You are almost 100 off. It's
No!
130. 130.
What's his high home run season?
His high home run season. Let's see. The most he ever hit. He only was in double digits. 1, 2, 3.
Fuck. This is
6.
exactly why the game is
He was
good,
in
though.
double digits 7 times. The most he ever hit in a season was 15. I knew as soon as I saw, like, I looked him up, and sometimes I'll look guys up, and then I'll be like, it's too easy. I'll move on. I looked him up, and he was the first one I looked up today, and I was like, that's the perfect number, 130. Because a speedy guy like Kenny Lofton, you'd be like, I don't know, maybe 50-ish home runs.
He also had, like, no arm strength.
No, he had no arms.
Yeah, he was like a guy who probably should have been playing left field.
He could have run the ball in faster than he could throw it in, probably.
He was truly like one of the greatest, because he was also in an era where base stealing was falling out of vogue.
Yeah.
And was just still a tremendous...
In the 80s, everyone was stealing all those bags because they had the cocaine on them.
Yeah, that's right.
They'd get
That's
on first base, take a bump, and then take second. It was great. Let's bring back those days.
Yeah, let's
now
get
that
these
they have
guys
the bigger
on cocaine.
bases. Now that they have just put the cocaine on the bag, so when they get there, just
the bag on the bag.
they slide right into it.
Yeah, that's good. God, that's
So,
embarrassing.
Sorry, you're off by 93.
My God,
that is a rough one for the
brutal
season standings. Not good for the old standings.
Absolutely brutal.
But you have a chance to get me back. It could be even worse for me.
Okay. A guy who feels like he was a Mariner.
Okay.
And you'll know why it feels like he was a Mariner. Nicknamed Country Breakfast is my recollection.
Billy Butler?
Billy Butler.
Billy Butler.
Yes, it is Country Breakfast, according to BaseballReference.com. Played 10 seasons.
Royals and A's?
Surprisingly, only a one-time All-Star and won the Silver Slugger.
Yeah.
Yeah, Royals, A's, and then one season, part of one season, like probably a deadline deal.
Yeah.
He played with the Yankees.
Oh, I do remember that. That was weird. Yeah. He had to shave, and he's got like such a chubby baby face. It was weird. Yeah.
Well, I feel like every picture I've seen of him, it's like they only use the chubby baby face picture.
Yeah.
So the reason I think he was a Mariner is because I conflate him and Mike Sweeney, like former Royals that were
Royals
like
first baseman,
low power, high average.
Billy Butler was like one of those guys that I feel like there was a clamoring among Mariner fans to like get him here somehow.
Yeah.
Because he's just like, he's a stat nerd darling, and the Mariners seem to always lead the league in stat nerd fans.
No, I don't think he's a stat nerd darling, which has always confused me why the A's traded for him.
He was like, okay, it's probably not like, they're not great stats now looking back because of how stats have advanced.
He didn't walk much.
But yeah, at the time though, like in the Moneyball era, we had like all sort of mixed them. We looked at any fat guy in baseball and we were like, he must be good. He
Put him
must
in
be
left
good.
field. Let's go.
He's better than we think, guys.
Yeah.
And that's Billy Butler seemed like the poster child for that. After like guys like Kevin Youkilis and those types.
Man, the Greek god of walk.
Yeah, Kevin Youkilis.
I believe he owns a brewery now. It's called the Greek god of hops.
That seems like the perfect career transition for a guy like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Billy Butler. 10 seasons, you said?
10 seasons.
That's not very many. You don't have to tell me this, but I assume at least one or two probably weren't even full seasons. And he was probably like...
Actually, I mean, he played... His rookie season was about like over half a season slate of games.
Okay.
And then pretty reliably played like a full slate of games.
Okay.
And then even the last year, he didn't play a full slate of games, but he played over half of a...
Yeah, I do remember, I've played a lot of fantasy baseball over the years, and he was never, in the recesses of my memory, he was never like a big power hitter. But he was probably hitting anywhere between 15 and 30. That's a pretty big window. If we said 20 a year for 9 seasons, that would be 180, right?
That math checks out.
So he probably is a little less than that. So I'm going to say 160.
Pretty goddamn good. 147.
Wow.
Which is
13
puts him
away.
barely ahead of Kenny Lofton. You can't picture two different body types.
We got skinny black guy, giant white guy.
Yeah. It looks like Billy Butler looks like he would commit a hate crime against Kenny Lofton. And they hit the same amount of home runs.
I want to see them run the bases together next.
I don't think they would be together for very long.
It's pretty close. Yeah, I feel like I had him pegged around like 15 to 20 most seasons, and then he probably did that for the better part of those.
We'll rule this guy out for future ones, but I want to pull up Mike Sweeney and see how close. So 147.
Okay.
I feel like these guys are like spiritually the exact same players.
They are similar, but Sweeney had a pretty lengthy career, I feel like.
Sweeney played 16 years.
Yeah, that's a long time for me.
But I bet you, so just bonus, doesn't count for the game. What do you think Sweeney hit? 16 years.
Yeah. I feel like at 16 years, and he's kind of like Billy Butler, where I feel like he's probably like a 15 to 20 guy most seasons. So 16, if he was 20 a year, over 16 years.
I'm going to give you a wild stat.
Okay.
You got to guess this also. How many more games than Billy Butler do you think Mike Sweeney played?
Okay, so he basically had double the length of the career, roughly. And there's 162. Probably 1,200 more?
40 more.
What? Oh, he was
40 more
injured a
games.
lot.
Yeah, he was injured a lot in those last years.
See, that's the thing. If you're fat, you can't get injured, man. You can't injure fat. You can't pull fat.
Yeah. I
That's
say
Billy
that to
Butler.
myself every morning when I look in the...
We need more Billy Butlers in the world. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I don't think he got to the 320 number. That'd be 20 a year over 16 years, because some of those later years were not great. But I think he's close, because he was definitely... There's probably some years he got around like 30 home runs.
I'm upset at the process that exists for this. The process is too good.
It's a good process. Yeah. I've put a lot of thought into this. So I'm going to say, I don't know if he got over 300. That's kind of a magic number, and he was very rarely available. 275.
215.
Oh, I was way off.
Yeah, that one's... I wish I would have picked
that. But that all comes down to availability. He came up as a catcher, so you don't expect a catcher to hit a lot of bombs as it is.
Yeah.
And then he just got hurt a lot, man. And I'm sure towards the end, what was his season high of home runs?
Oh yeah, let's pull it up.
It had to be like around 30.
God, it's so wild too. It was 29. He did 29 twice in 2000 and 2001. So 99. So 98, he hits 8 home runs. Mm-hmm. And this is such a Royals stat line. I guarantee you the Royals had a stat of guy with double-digit home runs for this stretch of years.
Yeah.
22, 29, 29, 24, 16, 22, and 21. From 99 to 2005, these are the years where Barry Bonds is putting out 70 runs, 73. And it's such that's exactly a Royals player. It's like, who most home runs in a season for the Royals? It might be Mike Sweeney with 29.
Most ever. It's probably some obscure, it's probably Jorge Soler. I bet that. I bet it is. And it's like 53 or something. Oh no, it could be Salvador. They're not going to show you single season.
Hold on, we can do this.
We just got to target this search. If we can find Jason Segel penis, we can find this.
He's not that far off. John Mayberry, and then father of
John Mayberry Jr.
Yeah.
No, there it is. Number 1, Jorge Soler.
Oh yeah, you're right. 48.
Yeah.
This is I'm blaming this on he did that in 2019, and I had my daughter in 2019. And many of these outside of Mike Moustakas even. I shouldn't have missed that one.
Soler, he came out of nowhere that year because he was kind of this uber prospect that never really put it all together, and then one year he just goes crazy.
Yeah.
And he's probably extended his career by 5 to 10 years because of that one season.
Okay. I think that's the end of the podcast.
That's it.
All right. And now it's intro time.